What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube world? This is Chris, and this is Barn on 11970. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. Now, of course, what I'm about to say is my opinion and my opinion alone. It doesn't mean that what I say is something that you have to do, but I am going to be talking a little bit about gold and silver because if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I like collecting physical bullion, especially gold and silver, even though I do have some platinum and some palladium, in the physical form for protection against potential economic problems. That's my opinion. Doesn't guarantee that anything's going to happen or you have to view things the same. So keep that in mind if you're listening. What I've seen is you could see that the gold and silver did decrease today, which is to be expected. In a market, you're going to have ups and downs. The one thing that I like is gold got close to testing the 1200, but it did not go beneath it. And silver did drop about 30-40 cents, but did not go below the $15 mark. So for me, testing that, it may test it again, because especially since today was an American holiday, you're probably going to see a little bit more of a sell-off tomorrow when the U.S. market opens again. So we'll have to see where the resistance points are and where it is stabilizing. So if it can hold the ground, that's a good sign for weeks and months to come, in my opinion. If it does drop below, like I said, it might test it a couple of times, hitting that 1200 mark for gold and the $15 mark for silver. I've always said all the time, buy on the dips. I was expecting there to be one when I made the video a couple of days ago, so this doesn't surprise me one bit. As far as where I feel gold and silver will be going, I don't believe, in my opinion, this is going to be the year where everything skyrockets. Now, that doesn't mean that's not impossible, but especially when you're talking an election year, they're going to be all over this like a fine-tooth comb. So I think they're going to try and regulate it as much as possible. But with that being said, there's an old saying that the tighter you try and squeeze sand in your hand, the more slips through your fingers. So it could be a double-edged sword, because we see how when they raised interest rates, what it did to the market, and now they're talking about reversing it. Now, if we know anything about governments, they like to not just admit their mistakes overall. They like to blame it on something. So if all of a sudden you see a reversal, it's probably because some quote-unquote event happened. I'm sure it's just coincidental that it will happen within a week parameter of the time period where they say, oh, because of such and such events or such and such event, we now have to reverse our train of thinking and actually do lower interest rates or not raise them or even get to negative interest rates. That does not surprise me, as I'm sure it will not surprise a lot of you. So, my prediction for gold and silver this year, I think if we can get silver to get past the $16.50 range, I would expect it to start getting a little higher, because it's going to create a little buzz when you start seeing movements. So if you start seeing silver hit to 17, like around 1720-ish, all of a sudden you're going to see a lot more people getting into it, especially if it's done within a 30-day period. That will, in my opinion, create a demand. The supply's not ready for it as much as you would like to think, and you might see an upward tick from there. Same thing with gold. I think if it could reach the 1300 mark before the summer, we might see some interesting changes in that, because you already see some of the news media is actually even talking a little bit not favorable about gold, but not as negative, which in their point of view is actually pretty much telling you, go get the stuff. Now, we pretty much know why these prices are staying as low as possible. It's because when you're getting close to any kind of collapse of an economy, if you look throughout history, all monetary systems start and end with precious metals. So if you, in the middle of that, sell off and trade and basically steal your country's gold and precious metals, and you know there's going to eventually be a reset because the fiat currencies can't last forever, well, you have to start accumulating that back again. Well, you can outlaw it like they've done before in history, or you can just do it a sneakier way where they just hammer the price. It makes people want to sell it and think it's worthless or not good enough, and you listen to the paid trolls who convince you that you've made the biggest mistake of your life because you didn't become a millionaire overnight or in the next year or two, and then they could buy it all back. And that's why you see countries like China, even though they are one of the major holders of our debt besides the U.S. taxpayer, because we're ultimately the ones that are paying back the debt, they are, as quick as they're getting our dollars, they are converting it into gold, silver. They are building cities that are empty because it's better to have something purchased with that dollar than for it to end up having something happen to it and now you're stuck with a bunch of paper that's not going to do much. So that's why, I mean, as much as some of these trolls, like I've said, they might win the battles, they don't win the wars. I listen to what countries do. And when countries like China, who are buying the majority of our debt and most of our jobs are shipped over there, I like to see what they're doing. And the fact that they're taking the dollars and converting them into physical assets says to me they don't have confidence in it. And that should tell you everything that you need to know. Because if they were confident in the US dollar, they would just put it in their banks, and if it was a storage of wealth, well, they'd keep it, earn interest, and have a lot more of it, wouldn't they? But if you have one monopoly dollar, or you have 1 million monopoly dollars, they're all pretty much worth the same. But if you take physical metals, you will know that 1 ounce of gold is far less than 100 ounces of gold. But what's the difference between a $1 bill and a $100 bill, other than an extra zero or two? So the scheme is going to be coming to an end. The problem is, like I've given the analogy of blowing into a balloon, you know that if you continue to blow in air into that balloon, eventually it's going to pop, but you don't know the exact second that's going to happen. And it's the same thing with the economy. And you always see that when people like Peter Schiff and others go on mainstream media propaganda news, they'll always say, oh, well, when's it coming? When's the date? You can't predict that. And then they make you think, oh, well, if you can't predict it, then how do you know? Well, that's just not how it works. Is anybody really predicting the market? Can you name one person that's been 100% right 100% of the time? You know, that's just not how this business works. And if it was that easy, then it would be a prediction. It wouldn't be a prediction. It would just be finding the pattern and just going based on that. And then eventually everybody'd learn the pattern. So I don't want to go to a specific number, because if you're basing it on US dollars and there's a dollar collapse, well, it doesn't matter how many dollars your gold or silver is worth if that currency is no longer functioning the way it's supposed to. Because as we have some kind of economic problem and the dollar is affected and the world's currencies are affected, they will rush to print more and more, which devalues it even more, so you need more of it to make the same purchases. So it's not like you're getting richer, you're keeping up with inflation. That's why if I had and you had $10,000 in the year 2000, and you put your $10,000 in the bank and kept it there, and I bought $10,000 worth of gold, well, what happened with your $10,000, even if you earned interest that came, let's say it came up to $15,000, well, the price of items you could have purchased with that $10,000 has risen since 2000. So you will need more of that currency to make the same exact purchase. Like, for example, in the year 2000, a car was averaged probably around $9,000. The average price now is over $20,000. Now with gold around the year 2000 was roughly around $350 to $400 an ounce. Even with the dips and everything, it's at $1,200 an ounce now. So if I would have purchased $10,000 worth of gold, it's not that I would have become wealthy, it would have meant I kept up with inflation. Because as the prices rise for everything, it affects the value of gold because you need more of the devalued currency to buy the same item. The illusion is they make you think things are getting more expensive because they want you to focus on the material that you're buying and not the currency that you're buying it with. But they'll never mention that in any seminars that are mainstream or any politician. or any mainstream media. They don't want you to know the truth. They want you to focus on their agenda, because that's what propaganda is all about. So we're seeing some tests right now for gold, silver, and the precious metals. I like the fact that gold did not get hammered past 1200, below 1200. I like that silver did not go below 15. Doesn't mean it won't. But as many of you out there know at this point, anytime you see those dips, that means it's sale time, time to add more to your stock. So if you have the ability to take your currency, which is devalued by the day as they print it, and be able to turn it into something that's a tangible asset, whether it be gold, silver, artwork, collectibles, properties, you name it, as long as you stay away from the paper game, because they control the paper game. And you could say, well, they control the physical metals. Well, if you take some of that precious metal away from them, they have no control over it. But if you're just buying stocks or bonds or any other paper asset, they can easily manipulate the numbers by just printing more of that paper. So some people might have sat here and said, oh, it's a prediction video. What's the exact number? What's the exact date? Well, nobody has that. And if you have that, that means you're part of the manipulation. And would you really want to trust that person anyway? It really depends on the situation, because any kind of event can change things. It's just not cut and dry the way some would hope. And that's why doing things like this, if you're doing it to try and make yourself rich, you're going to be very nervous. You're going to be very concerned. You're going to be looking at the prices every day and saying, oh my God, it's up at this point. Or, oh my God, look how low it is. Instead of seeing it for what it is, a protection against the potential collapse of a currency. Because for the first time in history, every single currency on the planet is not backed by anything but the debt of the people that are involved in it. The slaves, the people. That hasn't happened throughout history. There have been one or two or even several at a time, but there were always countries that had their gold or silver or copper or bronze-backed systems to replace them. In this current system since 1971, where nothing is backed by anything but debt, and you could say oil as well, and look how much they're hammering the price of oil, this is unprecedented in history. So when one goes, they all go. And I'll tell you this much, I would rather spend some of my currency, as it's depreciating in value, on things that could potentially return that money back, than to not take the chance and think, oh, that's garbage, or oh, that's full of crap, and then find out you were wrong. Because if I'm wrong, I have some metals that I can always turn around and sell. As you can see, go on eBay, there's not one auction that isn't being bid on when it comes to precious metals. Believe me, I wish it was the case that it wasn't, because then I could get it for cheaper prices. But they usually go way above spot when you have an auction. And it shows what people are willing to pay. That means there is a demand. If you are getting paper, they can continually change the numbers. But if you get the physical amount, it's based on what they have available. Because unless somebody knows how to create gold, silver, platinum, and palladium out of thin air, they can't manipulate it. But they can control it by hammering the prices down, getting people frustrated, keeping them out of the game, or selling everything. And then they'll scoop it all up happily, as you're laughing at people like me and others who continually hold it. Because even though for about a year, roughly, I wasn't talking about it much, because there's no sense of talking about the same stagnant thing day after day for years, I still have everything that I talked about years ago as far as my physical metals. And my ideals haven't changed. And if you haven't gotten onto this train yet, well, there's still plenty of time. That balloon is being filled with air. And they're not stopping. They think that balloon is going to stretch forever. Balloons have a lot of elasticity. They will stretch. They will go above and beyond. But make no mistake, they all pop. Don't be caught in the explosion. So that's my video. Hope you guys appreciated it. If you did, thumbs up always helps. I love the support, so thank you for those who take the time to do it. Check out all of my videos. I have a playlist section where the must-watch videos are the ones that I think that are important enough to watch. I hope you will, and I hope you will share this message to other people, because, you know, like a parent to a child, they will do anything to try and protect their loved ones. When people like myself and others make videos like this, they're trying to help other people, because it's the right thing to do. The selfish thing would be to do it for yourself and not let anybody in on it. But like they say, united we stand, divided we fall. Don't let one of the people divide you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.